I'd like to ask Rosalie first, what was the eureka moment for finding this book as a property? Did someone walk into a bookstore, someone like you, and say, check this out?
Well, I'd like to take the credit for finding the book, but in fact, it was the script that came my way. Jane Anderson and I had developed a project together back in the mid-90s, and she came back into my life when I'm not producing. I'm actually a manager as well, and she became a client, and she had written an adaptation of The Wife, and it was just fantastic. And I believe it was written when New Line had their specialty division, Fine Line. But Fine Line was no longer, and so the script was sitting on the shelf at New Line, but the book had come out of option. So I'm going to try and give you the short version, because this was a process of constantly figuring out how to take the next step. But the first step was to option the book, so that at least we controlled the underlying rights. And it is a wonderful novel. And then I believed, because the film is set largely in Stockholm, that I should have a Scandinavian partner. And I was introduced to Mita Foldiger, who was my partner in making the film, and we agreed to work together even before we had actually met. And as it turned out, my belief that there would be Scandinavian subsidies to make the film didn't play out, because we weren't Swedish enough to qualify. But I met a wonderful partner in Mita, and Mita was the one who introduced me to Bjorn. And in the meantime, beautiful Glenn Close had read the script and had already committed, and it sort of snowballed from there. I flew to London to meet with various sales agents, and the team at Embankment read the script, loved it, and they said, we want to be your partners. They were the ones who sold the international rights. And even with all of that, which I think took over I think for me a total of 4 years, but at the 11th hour, we still were missing a piece of equity finance, and that was provided by Claudia Blumhuber and Silver Reel.
Okay.
So there's and all this wonderful cast
And then this all
came on board.
Came together. And so for Glenn Close, you saw in this script what?
I saw a big challenge in this script to figure out who this woman was. And it was a situation that I, never played a character like it. And I was just fascinated by trying to figure it out.
And for you, Jonathan Pryce, this is a character who is admirable on the outside, and what was your word, a bastard, something of a bastard, or at least trying to balance his hypocrisy on the inside. What was it like to form this character for your performance?
I would think particularly easy, I think.
You let her do the heavy lifting?
I drew from life.
You have to understand, this man just played the Pope.
That's why she was kissing my ring earlier. But no, I read the script, and usually when I look for a script that I want to do, I look for something that doesn't have all the answers, and that especially in theatre, I work a lot in theatre, and I liked the audience to be the other cast member, and I think in this the script wasn't overwritten. The characters were clearly drawn, but it wasn't overwritten, and there was a lot of room for all of us to fill out those characters. And of course, I've played a lot of bad people in my time, but
Are you speaking of the Pope as well?
Sorry, the Pope.
Not the Pope, okay.
You got to see it. I'll tell you.
That was a mean cackle.
Anyway, but I have always believed in the people I play, and I believe in their truth as they see it, and they are going about their lives as they see it in an honest way. And so I played Joe as honestly as I could, and then it's up to the audience to decide whether he's a sympathetic character or why he did what he did, and why his wife stayed with him.
And so, Bjorn, how do you direct these scenes that are so nuanced? You know, all of this right below the surface, and only a bit of it can come out at a time without throwing off the balance of the scene.
First, it's very much to take care of the acting energy. And I also I have worked for many years in Sweden and in Scandinavia, and I like to take film from the top to the bottom. Every scene every retakes is through the whole scene. We never did inserts. So then you get some kind of energy. If you find the right scenery, and the camera is on the right places. We had two cameras, and one leading the head, one lead camera, and the cinematographer Ulf Brantos and I have collaborated for many years. So we have to find the scenery, and when we have find the scenery, we find where the camera should be, and then we just investigate the scenes together with the actors. And my responsibility is very much to take care of their energy into the editing room.
Annie, you and your mother play the same character at different ages. Did you work together to get a synergy, or did you develop your characters independently?
No, this was an incredibly huge collaborative experience, certainly from the bottom to the top. And it was incredibly interesting and amazing role to play. And this character is somebody I will truly kind of cherish forever. But we worked hard on her. We did.
And did you, and Glenn, perhaps to speak to this, did you want a sense of her as someone who was volcanic below the surface, that her rage and her resentment were building, or a sense that this is what a wife, dutiful wife, whatever adjective you like, would do?
I don't know if she would characterize herself as somebody who's full of rage. I think it's something that grows, maybe unbeknownst to her, because she is so used to swallowing, his behavior and holding the coat, and it's a role that she has accepted until she can't do it anymore.
And surprises herself in some way.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's just a series of events.
For Christian, you played a journalist in Interview with the Vampire, a very different journalist from this particular role. We met an unhappy end. In this one, you're sort of a journalist scholar, but still, I mean, where are you on the Bill Moyers to Bill O'Reilly spectrum on this kind of thing in creating your character?
Yeah, it's funny. I do have a new man crush right now, actually, and it's Jim Acosta. From CNN. I just love that guy. Right? Come on. He's my new journalistic role model. I really do love that guy. But yes, it has been a long journey from Interview with the Vampire, and I've had several interviews since then, I think, and I have picked up different qualities from each one of those people. I tend to be a observant person, and I like to pick up certain character traits, and I get a sense of, certainly the drive and the ambition and the need for his own personal gain and glory, possibly at the expense of an entire family. But at the same time, like Jonathan was saying, I do, when you're playing the character, you don't always see him as particularly mischievous or out to hurt anybody. I mean, he has his own agenda and his own motivations, and to a certain degree, not to, toot his horn too much, I think there is sort of a heroic quality to this guy. I mean, it's inconceivable for him where he is at this particular point to imagine anybody not willing to be in the spotlight, and not willing to take credit for such beautiful work. It's like, how could you not, come on. And so I appreciated the scene and its subtleties, and certainly working with Glenn and Jonathan was fantastic. We didn't get to work together, but I loved the whole experience.
And Bjorn, your wife was the editor, and you have complementary, not competitive functions like the principal characters here. But you had to build a tension, and you also leave us with tension. It isn't fully resolved, which is unusual for a film.
Yeah, and for me, as I said before, the whole shooting is to collect material, emotional material, into the editing process. And Lena is sitting out here in the audience. She's the editor.
Yay!
So
The best.
So there we spent the time, and we go from the script, and then you have to you have so many possibilities, and at one, you just have the right time, and then you're sculpting, and then suddenly one day, after many screenings, public screenings, discussions, months away, suddenly you have something that is balanced and gives energy. So it's very hard to talk about, but for me, I think the whole process of editing is one of the key moments in filmmaking. And then you have the shooting will be an investigation of the material and the scenes, and we collect as much as possible of the emotions into to the editing room. So yeah, it can easily go wrong in the editing room, but it can also, as here, slowly, it was something that, it has good energy within it.
Well, thank you all for your energy and performance.